Oh, hey now. Back to the good old ways, good old days. It's dark in here. Okay, that's a bit better. Thank you, YouTube. Well, welcome back. Whew. What a week. It is I, your friend, an intrepid beer friend. I'm your beer friend, not your boyfriend, your beer friend. I wonder if that's like a done thing. Hey, MVP Brew. Oh my gosh, look at that. All sorts of people. Man, I really goofed and didn't do the Instagram last week, and all these people obviously jazzed to get involved. I like it. I like it. Okay, so what's going on? It is Monday night. It's 9:30. It's a bit later than usual. I'm sorry. I was just on a Zoom call, which is what the cool kids are doing these days. I think that's the idea. If you're anyone, you need to be on a Zoom call. I'm on a Zoom call. Was on a Zoom call. For something I'm very excited about, actually. I'm not going to lie. I'm helping a group of friends who are shanty singers, like a cappella singing songs of the sea, like a bunch of sailors. And I love it. And they're going to be appearing of the sea like a bunch of sailors. And I love it. And they're going to be appearing in a festival. They were supposed to be participating in Oban, Scotland, but obviously travel restrictions. So they've moved to digital, and the festival is taking place this Saturday, coming up 5 days. And I'm going to help them with a bit of the tech, and they're going to be working out of my church, which is fun. So I'm excited. Good times on that Zoom call. Little more business before we get on to the key tonight, the beer we're drinking tonight. Pardon me, I'm already drinking beer. I'm going to have a sip. That's better. Last week, if you did not tune in on the YouTube, then you would have missed that I did a fantastic, very long episode with Sam Corbeil from Sawdust City Brewing, and we had a lot of fun chatting about some pretty interesting stuff. And then I gave him a very long, somewhat silly at points quiz, because podcasts are all about the quizzes these days, apparently. And he did okay. I've got a score right here. Actually, he got 57 out of 79. It's definitely a pass. So good for Sam. Good times. I have not released the audio for that yet. So if you are listening to this in your podcast feed, don't go looking for it. It's not there yet. I had to download the video back from YouTube, and then I had to chop out anyway, it's been a bit of a fiasco, and I still hadn't filed my taxes until 2 days ago. So that was kind of bearing down on me. But anyway, we're done all that now, and I'm going to release that later this week as a little bonus app. It's saved for the Patreon, but obviously I don't do that. So is Patreon to... No, you know what? No, I'm going to stop. Let's not do that joke. That's why we do this live, guys. You gotta be on your game. It was a joke about OnlyFans, and if you know what that is, you're a terrible person. My wife's reminding me that she thinks I should make a Kahoot quiz of the quiz I gave to Sam, and you could all see how you do on it. Maybe I should make the Kahoot quiz before I release the podcast, so that if you haven't seen it, you can't cheat and know the answers in advance. That's something right there. I might do that. I have to get the kids to show me how to make a Kahoot. I am not familiar with the Kahoot platform, so that's where we're at. That's the business of the night. Done, dusted. Let's drink some beer. I had the most serendipitous, lovely surprise on Friday while I was delivering the mail in the beach neighborhood where I live on Lee Avenue, no less, if you're familiar with the beach. As I was walking along delivering my mail, I saw up ahead a familiar face. And who would it be? But friend of the pod, man I've mentioned before because he has the funnest name to say in the world. It was none other than Mr. Mick McNamara, now of Oast House Brewers. And he was delivering some beer as we do these days. Everyone's delivering the beers, and he was out doing the job. I need another sip of beer. One sec. So I called out, "Hey, no Irish in the beach," because he's Irish. It was hilarious, and we all had a good time. Anyway, he gave me some brews, and I said, "I'm going to drink one of these on the pod on Monday, and I'm going to message you on Monday, and you can remind me all the details." And he did, and they're on my phone, which is great because it's live streaming to Instagram right now. I'm going to have to do this by memory. So anyway, what have we got? Well, this absolutely delightful, if you're watching the video, can of Forgotten Field Sour IPA. Now, if you're looking, you can see. If you're listening, most of the label is taken up with what I can only describe as a very attractive sort of wallpaper print. Sort of, what would we call that? Not quite Wedgwood blue. It's a bit lighter than that. A dusty blue, kind of pink floral-y motif. It's quite attractive. But no matter whether you're only listening or listening and watching, you can't tell that it's textured. It actually feels like wallpaper. It's incredible. This might be my favorite label on a beer. I don't want to say ever, because that's a big claim, but certainly in recent memory. Just gorgeous. You drink, you taste with all of your senses. If you know enough about taste, you know it's partially your tongue and parts of the inside of your mouth where you get sensory receptors of things like sweet, sour, bitter, salty, etc. I've probably forgotten one in that list. Anyway, and then when you say this tastes like Chinook hops, that's not in your mouth. That's in your nose. That's scent. But it's taste. It's kind of tricky. But you also drink your eyes, which is why so many people see a dark beer and immediately assume it's going to be heavy or something like that. Your senses, which is why a beautiful piece of glassware, like I'm holding up for the cameras here, which this is, of course, the Spiegelau IPA glass. I thought that was a good choice, given that this is an IPA. It does look like a mix, as I always say, between a bong and a sex toy, but it's delightful. And it feels good in your hand, and that elevates the experience. And for me, I don't know, but I'm expecting this wonderful textured wallpaper label from Oast House Brewers is going to elevate the experience for me. So let's do a little live Foley. There it is. Just waving at all the crowd coming in here. Sorry, I'm burning through my voice right now. I hope I'm not raspy by the end of this. I might do my jazz thing. Yeah, this is Chris Schreier for CBC Radio 2. That last track featured Ed Chavanussi on claves. Something like that. Here we go, a pouring beer. Oh, get it up into the camera and try not to pour it on your crotch. That is always the challenge. This is not the cleanest beer glass I've ever drank out of. Little pro tip, kids. Nice little tap on something solid and you'll knock some of the bubbles off. This is wonderful, lemony yellow, hazy, but not a hazy boy, just hazy. Can't really see through it, but it's not thick. It's still fairly clear, but definitely not translucent by any standards. Looking like a good active carbonation out of my somewhat dirty glass. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. So sour IPA. I hope you're making notes, kids. Sour IPA. I mean, right away on the nose, you get the smell of the lactobacillus, which is the bacteria that creates the souring effect. This is a kettle sour. So what that means, I'm going to try the water, and it gets transferred to the kettle, and then it sits in the kettle without boiling for a few days. And there's natural lactobacillus is the bacteria, and it starts consuming some of the sugar, but rather like yeast creating carbon dioxide and ethyl alcohol. I'm not entirely sure everything lactobacillus does, but one thing it definitely creates is lactic acid. Same stuff that you get in your muscles that makes you sore. And in this case, it's in your beer, and it makes it taste sour. Sometimes it can get into yogurty tasting because, of course, the sourness in yogurt and sour cream and some cheeses, even cream cheese, I like a little tart in my cream cheese. That's lactic acid. You can't say that something smells sour. That doesn't make any sense because you remember what I was saying earlier. Sour is part of your mouth. That's not part of your nose. You can't really smell sour. What happens in your brain if you think you're smelling something sour is you're smelling something that you know tastes sour, and it's making you remember that. Okay. So when I smell lactobacillus in the beer, I know that I'm smelling something sour. I can't smell sour. You only taste sour, but I'm aware it's very lactic on the nose. And I say very, I mean, it's not aggressive. It doesn't make my eyes water or my nose tingle, but there's a very clear lactic presence. It's also floury, which is a little hard to disentangle from the lactic acid, but a nice kind of floral presence to it. And something grainy malty, but I'm not 100% sure. So let's have a little sip, as they say. This beautiful wallpaper can. This is the first one I've had. I never had this beer before. I just opened it now. You heard that was this guy, and it was risky business because the thing with sour IPAs is that they can be pretty sour. Like aggressively sour, painfully sour sometimes. And hey, if that's your jam, cool, man. I'm not going to yuck your yum. It's just not my thing. I don't like drinks that challenge me. I like drinks that I just enjoy. This one is lovely and tart, but it's light. The acidity is definitely there. There's no doubt that this is a kettle soured beer, but it isn't even puckering. It doesn't kind of, that feeling in your cheeks right in there. It doesn't even do that. It's just nicely lactic-y sour. And then, very creamy mouthfeel. Again, you almost wonder, I wonder if the can says if there's anything in there that might make it extra creamy, oats or something. It doesn't say, but it is delightful. Again, floral. It's interesting because as an IPA, it isn't aggressively bitter. And interesting, the barley comes through on the end. There's a really nice malty little glimmer at the end of the sip. Yeah. Yeah. Nicely. Oh, that's interesting. Nicely sour, lactic-y. Not quite lemony. It's a little different. Very creamy feeling. A bit of a dryness that's undoubtedly the hops, but it's not squeaky. And then this sweet malty finish. It's very unexpected that it's got this. The sweetness is on the end of the sip, which I'm not accustomed to. That's not normally my experience. Now, if you're familiar with that old diagram of the tongue and it showed you, I'm gesturing, by the way, if you're listening only on the cameras, I'm trying to make a tongue with my hands. Well, maybe I could do it like this. And they would say that the very tip is where sweet is. And then it's like bitter is down the side and like salty is kind of here. No, wait, bitter was at the back. I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter because it was all bullshit. But typically because of that, I think I got programmed that you expect sweetness the instant it touches your tongue, because they would tell you that the sweet part's like right at the very tip. And sometimes it's because you've been told it, which I suppose you could argue is hearing. But anyway, because of that, I tend to always expect the sweet character of the beer to be one of the first things I taste. In this case, it's not. It's literally the last thing, which is very interesting. That is a really good sour IPA. Like I say, creamy mouthfeel, a little bit of a sweet finish. It's definitely hoppy, but I can't really grab too much to say about the hops. There's a a dryness in the middle part that's quite nice, and a floral kind of thing, but it's hard to disentangle that from the lactobacillus. And then this very nice, gently tart presence. This is a really, really good sour IPA. Now, caveat, as I was saying earlier, if you like teeth stripping, tear forming, cheek puckering, this isn't the one for you. But if you like a nice, balanced, not aggressively anything sour IPA, you just want something that's bright and refreshing, you could do a lot worse than this. I'll tell you that. This is a very good, nice, balanced sour IPA. November, it's porter time. I like a porter in July myself. But if you like to keep your beers seasonal, that's cool. Again, I don't want to rain on your parade. This is going to be a summer beer for you. It's very refreshing. It's not particularly effervescent. I was saying it had a high looking carbonation. I was wrong about that. I think it's just because my glass was dirty. But yeah, very refreshing. None of the components are particularly over the top. I'm staying away from the word drinkable because I know that's a silhouette more into my glass. While we talk, it is delightful. Now, food. What would you eat with this delightful sour IPA from Oast House? Now, of course, Oast House is in the delightful and charming Niagara-on-the-Lake. Who doesn't like Niagara-on-the-Lake? Well, no one I know. It's lovely. It's sour, but there's a creaminess to it. That makes me think we need to do something with some sort of a cheese. If you lose me on Insta or on YouTube, I'm sorry. 1 second. Cotija. Cotija. This is this cheese that I eat when I'm in Nicaragua, and it's like feta. Not quite as tart as feta, saltier. Really nice. Great. Oh, making me hungry for breakfast in Nicaragua. You get a plate with gallo pinto, which is like a beans and rice with peppers in it. Some fried plantain, some fried eggs, and a couple of nice slices of queso cotija. That is a breakfast of champions. So that actually, let's go with that breakfast right there. And here's why. Gallo pinto is tasty, very stodgy and stick to your ribs kind of rice dish, but it's not that it's bland, but it's not a particularly gastrically exciting dish. Typically, I mean, it's peasant food, right? It's from the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. This is food that you eat because you have access to these ingredients, and it's quite complete because, of course, it's got rice and beans and some vegetables in it. And so it's eaten. Most Nicaraguans that I know would eat gallo pinto at least once a day, if not multiple times. It's just a sturdy, good for you starch protein mix. But again, it's not wildly interestingly tasting, especially after eating it for, say, your whole life. So here the beer's going to kind of play off of that. Gallo pinto, it's you use a lot of the boiling liquid from the beans, so it's quite starchy, and the tartness of the beer is going to set off on that. And then you're going to have your plantain. Oh, fried plantain. It's sweet. And how do you describe the taste of a plantain? It's like somewhere between like a potato and taro. There's no banana to it. Like people always think it tastes like a banana. It doesn't taste like a banana. It's earthy, but then especially when you fry it, if it's maduro, which is like a fully ripe black plantain, which is sweet, and then you fry it and it gets all caramelized. Oh man. And then a cup of coffee. Who needs beer? Forget it. Just have breakfast in Nicaragua sometime. Oh, I miss Nicaragua. Anyway, but this beer would work well with that. Again, with the plantain, a lot of earthy characteristics. The floral is going to work well with that. And then, of course, the beautiful queso cotija. Oh, salty, but a little lactic-y is going to go really well with the lactic-y sweetness in the beer. All juxtaposition flavors, okay? Nothing really complementary in that mix. But I think that would be an interesting way of doing it. And this, by the way, would be a great breakfast beer. And if me saying breakfast beer disturbs you, we haven't hung out enough. Okay, that was kind of free associating, but I'm sticking with that. That was a good one. Nicaraguan bread. I'm pretty sure Mick said, oh, yeah. Yes. It's available at the LCBO, but as we discussed in the last episode, especially in the last episode, which you had to have seen with Sam, might be the next episode if you're listening to this on your podcast feed, we were talking about the problem right now. There was a policy thing about the LCBO that a lot of people don't realize is each individual store more or less decides what it stocks. So store X, my local store just down the way on Queen Street, in the redeveloped church, they decide I'm going to stock this beer, or they decide I'm going to stop stocking this beer, or they're going to decide we ran out of this beer, we're not going to order more. Unfortunately, it also means that sometimes they run out of the beer and they just forget. So most breweries that are big enough have a dedicated LCBO salesperson, or a few regionally. But even the smallest ones, part of the salesperson or the whoever makes the beer and sells it, their job, this beer is available. It's a listed SKU at the LCBO, but that doesn't mean it's going to be at your local LCBO. And this, my friends, is where you come in, because what you need to do is go to your local LCBO and go into the beer section and look around and look confused. Where's the beer? I need my Forgotten Field Sour IPA from Oast House Brewers. And you could say to a person who works there, do you have it? And if they did, it would be there and you would have seen it and bought it already. So they will say no. And you say, who do I need to talk to about getting that? Otherwise, it's probably the assistant manager or maybe the manager of the store, and say, hey, check it out. You need to look up the SKU for this beer. It's called Forgotten Fields Sour IPA from Oast House Brewing. It's a local brewery. They're in Niagara-on-the-Lake. They're nearby. Beautiful. One of the most attractive cans you're ever going to see. This thing is going to fly off the shelves. Buy it, and they can bring it in. You need to do this because the brewery can't. They're not allowed to do that right now. It's to try and make everyone's life easier with COVID, because apparently, I don't know, you can't answer the phone. Also, do that with every brewery you love. Go into your LCBO. If they don't have the beer you're looking for and you know it's available through the LCBO and you love that brewery, tell that LCBO to bring that beer in, because you're the only one who can do it right now. I can too, so I do it too. But you need to be helping out these breweries because they can't make sales calls right now, but you can. So please do that. That's your project for the week. So yeah, LCBO. Also, as noted, Mick seemed to be delivering beer that I think the person had bought. I don't think I was on before I started this. One of the gentlemen and I were discussing the fact that he's been getting biweekly orders from High Park Brewing, which is his local nearest to him brewery. And he said he didn't realize how well he was going to know the guy from the brewery when he started this out. But now they've become buddies because he gets so much beer. So that's fantastic. Find your local brewery, order from them because they're your local. You got to watch out for them. And check out Oast because, like I said, this is fabulous stuff. And Oast makes a wide range of pretty awesome beers. And hey, when we're allowed to make non-essential trips, head down to Niagara-on-the-Lake. Check out Oast. Check out Exchange. Check out Silversmith. I'm probably forgetting others, and I'm really sorry. Check out Niagara College. I don't even know if they do tours, but if they do, good golly. Anyway, I'm getting all worked up here. I need a sip of beer. Oh, and that's a good one. I could drink that all night. At the top, because not a lot of people are necessarily watching and listening off the top. Through the magic of digital audio workstations, this will be at the top. But anyway, I mean, basically just racism and not just in America, in Canada, and specifically in Toronto too, and specifically with interactions with police. It's been a really bad week. And I mean, I don't know what to say. That's part of the problem. It's sad and it's heartbreaking, and I have so many friends who I know are feeling this pain in ways that I can't even really understand. And so what do we do? And to be honest with you, I'm not really even sure what the answer is. I think part of it is pointing at it and identifying it and saying, this is racism. This is the textbook definition of systemic, generational racism. The way that especially we see people of color, whether that's people of African or Caribbean descent, indigenous people, anybody who identifies as a person of color, their interactions with police are so fraught with danger, personal and for the wider community. And I don't know what the answer is. I was really heartbroken. I was talking with actually my priest, and we're talking about this in a specific context. And she was saying his church has a policy to never, if at all possible, call 911. And that's pretty messed up, but also completely understandable. And in this case, they're all guys I know who are part of a system that is just broken. It works really well for some people, and it works terribly for a lot of people. And that's just not okay. And I don't know what that solution is. I don't know if that's political, not fully defunding, but changing funding and shifting things to community-based support groups, or I don't know. I know right now the best thing we can do is point at it of color. You need to be open, but you need to be very careful, because this is not about us. As much as we want to try and either be saviors as white people or allies, but allies for the sake of acclaim. That's not what this is about. So hopefully you have friends who are people of color. They're hurting right now, and they need love and support. And yeah, I think the most important thing to remember, this isn't about us. This is about a struggle that people, I'm saying us as white people, I'm a white person. This is about a struggle that we are inherently part of, but have very little understanding of, for the most part. I'm generalizing. So maybe try and work on that understanding. Don't ask your Black friend, hey, tell me a book to read. They're hurting and they have too much stuff on their mind right now. I've done that already, not that specifically, but you mean well. The most important thing right now that you can offer a friend of yours who's a person of color is love, a call, a check-in. How are you doing? Moving forward, we need to be voting for politicians who make relationships between police and people of color a very high priority. We need people who are willing to point at racism and call it racism and not try and couch it in gentler terms. We need to hold media accountable. And that's hard for an individual to do. So the best thing you can do is become involved in some sort of wider community that's working towards that. And that's the best I got right now, aside from just a lot of pain and confusion, if I'm honest, and just feelings of inadequacy and inability to help. So not a high that I like to end on, but that's where we're at right now. And that's what the world's looking like. So I usually tell you to take care of each other. I want you to be very careful this week that you're taking care of your friends who are people of color in honest and unselfish ways. Let's go with that. You might get it wrong, but get it wrong because you're trying in earnest to love people and to help them, and learn when you get it wrong so that next time you get it right. Sorry, but that's where we're at as society right now. Love you guys all. Be good to each other. Talk at you in a week.